Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to talk about journaling for spiritual and personal development. I have 6 tips, tricks, a guideline for you. I'm not going to waste your time rambling about it. Let's just get started, shall we? Cool. All right, number 1, set and setting. Now I really believe that this is massively beneficial for a couple of reasons. One, when you create a space for your journaling, you are A, making it sacred, and you are B, beginning a program in your subconscious mind. So if you kind of create the same space, say you burn the same incense or the same candle or the same lighting, you set things up the same way, it's going to begin to, after you do it a few times, trigger you into journaling mode. So my first tip is to set up your space and to create a space that makes you feel comfortable. Now I am a Taurus, so maybe it's just me, but I've got to have snuggly blankets, pillows. I got to have multiple colored markers and pens, and I like to play nature sounds or specific hertz frequencies in the background, or something without lyrics. So sometimes I'll play just the lofi hop, I don't know what it's called, but that I play that sometimes in the background, whatever it is, just some kind of chill music in the background. I burn incense, I light candles, I turn on string lights, I've got Himalayan salt lamps, I get my pillows and everything, and I get very comfy and I get very cozy, and it's like a whole environment. And I really think that that's important. I really think that it helps to put me in the space, and I recommend doing that. I recommend not just going and haphazardly trying to sit at a kitchen table where your brain is in kitchen mode, or in your bedroom where you're going to want to go to sleep, or maybe you do it in those spaces but you change the space somehow. You do something that makes it feel different, and then you continue to do that each time you journal, and that will help get you into the journaling mode. Which brings me to number 2, which is treating journaling like a disciplined practice. It's no different in my mind than yoga or meditation or anything else that you might choose to do. If you're a runner, maybe you run consistently and you let yourself fall out of it. If you go to the gym a lot, or whatever your thing is, whatever you have to do consistently, treat journaling the same way. When you're journaling, you make it a practice. You do it a minimum of X amount of times per X amount of time. You could do it daily if you have time. You could do it weekly. I would say weekly's minimum. Maybe every Friday night or every Sunday night or whatever the thing is. Or maybe you just tell yourself at least twice during the week and you just do it when you feel inspired to. That's fine too, but make sure that you have a regular practice. Treat it like it's an important part of your development, that is something you have to work on constantly, and it will begin to work for you. Number 3 is vulnerability. Now, I've mentioned this in other videos before. I think I mentioned it in my shadow work for beginners video, which if you are interested in that as well, because it's a journaling thing you can do a lot, I'll put that here and also below. Now, I talk about in there that you really have to feel secure and comfortable with your journal. And that means you need to have privacy because you need to be vulnerable in it. I think it's really, 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 really important. If you feel like there's a chance someone might read your journal, you're going to hold back a little, maybe even just subconsciously, but it's going to inhibit your ability to feel like you can really, truly be open and vulnerable. I think it's really important that you find a way to ensure that your journal is a secure space that you can be honest in. So whether that's getting a lockbox or hiding it or whatever you have to do, if you're in a place where you can't trust that your journal is going to be kept private, I really strongly suggest that you find a way to make sure that it is, and that when you're journaling, you are absolutely open and willing and vulnerable with yourself to really express your actual feelings you might be ashamed of. Maybe somebody achieved something and you're not actually happy for them, right? That's something that you're going to need to recognize within yourself. But in order to recognize it, you have to admit it first, right? Or perhaps you said something to somebody but it wasn't really truly how you felt, and you don't really want to express how you truly felt. So you need to be able to express these things in a space that you feel is safe, where you can actually be vulnerable with yourself. So I really recommend finding a way to secure your journal and to really open up with yourself and allow yourself to say anything and everything, and give yourself the grace and forgiveness to be okay with that. Now, as far as actually having this journal be helpful, that takes us to number 4, which is pattern recognition. I really think that a journal becomes more and more helpful progressively over time. And a lot of that, I think, comes with reviewing. It's in the review process that I'm like, oh shit. And that vulnerability is really important, because if you're really vulnerable with yourself and you say the things you really think and feel, and then later you can read them, and it'll help you begin to recognize patterns within yourself. Those patterns are going to be the keys to unlock your healing and to unlock your progress. Those patterns are big, giant red flags to help you point to different areas that you're repeating. Things you repeat are your karma, right? These are karmic loops you're stuck in. You have to break that by breaking the patterns. And journaling, if you're really honest and you're really vulnerable and you do it consistently and you review it, will allow you to notice patterns. And that's what I recommend you, if you're new to journaling, really focus your practice on the recognition of patterns. And sometimes it can just take a couple of entries. Sometimes as you begin to write, you realize, I felt this way before. Like, this is the same thing I always get stuck in. Like, this always seems to happen to me. Or, I feel like I always feel this way. This is how I felt my entire life. Like, these things, these are patterns. These patterns are going to point you to internal subconscious limiting beliefs that are going to allow you to progress and become more aware of the things that are happening within you that you may be not entirely aware of. So, pattern recognition is what you're going for. But again, you got to be vulnerable and you have to have a disciplined practice. and those things will come together to help you. Number 5 is to leverage cycles. Now, there's a couple of things we'll talk about here. But for starters, I break up all of my journals into years. I have one exception to that, and that is my traveling ceremony journal. When I'm going to do ceremonies, I have a travel journal. I have a cover and I have refills for it. I don't switch that out by year. That just continues over time. Other than that, my journals are broken up by year, and I break up everything by year. I don't even just have my personal journals. I even have personal projects, brainstorming journals. They go in 1 year. I just have, if you saw the number of journals and notebooks I have piled up around my house, it's really crazy, because I don't like to combine them. This is this notebook was for this period of time when I was working on this project. It doesn't get blended into anything else. And I find that to be very, very, very helpful for a couple of reasons. One, the pattern recognition we were just talking about. It's really, really helpful to notice patterns over time in a couple of ways. One, there's your personal patterns, but 2, you can begin to see patterns in your seasonal life, in your astrological life. For me, with the Lion's Gate. So I've noticed consistently the Lion's Gate, which happens during Leo, when there's an alignment in the stars. It's called the Lion's Gate. Every time the Lion's Gate happens, I have a tower moment. It's consistent as fuck. And it took me a few years to recognize it, where I was like, man, it seems like right on the Lion's Gate, when that happens, something on that triggers me or my chart or whatever, right? I also know now I'm very aware of how the cycles or the seasons affect my thinking, my behavior. I can see that in my journals. I can see the way that I view things and the way that my life kind of shifts. I can see the influence of the seasons on my life. I can see my entire year in one notebook. I can look at the first entry and the last entry and know that whole year and what that journey meant for me. I think cycles are really, really, really beneficial to leverage and to look at. Personal cycles, seasonal cycles, it helps with the pattern recognition, not just internally, but externally as well. It helps to begin to kind of look at your life systematically. And there's positives too as well. I want to be clear about that. Because when I look at my year journals, I not only see the tragedies that happened or the negative events, but I see what those things taught me. I can look back on my year. I can look at my first entry and my last entry, and I can be like, holy shit, Did I change as a person in that year? I can look at how events transform me in the course of 12 months. And I can see at the beginning of this year and then 3 years later at the end of that year what it looks like and how vastly different those people are. And I think it's really, 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 really good. Again, you've got to have a disciplined practice. You've got to be vulnerable. You've got to start doing pattern recognition work. All these things work together to lead you into a cyclical awareness. I am very much about seasonal awareness, seasonal alignment. I have a seasonal 7 series, which is going to be very soon. When this video comes out, we have the summer solstice in just a few weeks. So I'll be doing 7 videos, 7 days in a row. I'm very much about cycles. I'm very much about recognizing cycles and patterns, and what those say. And I think this is a really important thing to weave into your journaling process. Number 6, and this probably should have been the first one, but it's something that I just kind of tacked on to the end. And that is, if you don't know where to start, if you're like, cool, Stormy, that sounds fucking great, but like, I don't know what to write in my journal. Okay, here's what I recommend. Just journal your week every week. That's it. And not just like the events, but internally, how you feel about those events, they make you think about. Think about your life. Think about what you recognize in yourself. Start to just self-reflect and start to write about your current events simultaneously. Once you start to marry your internal reflection process and your internal world, and you begin to also write down your external world, that's when you get to see that they mirror one another. And eventually you can start to figure out how to use one to kind of change the other. Like changing your physical environment to change your internal world, changing your internal world to change your external world. If you don't know where to start, just start by writing out your internal thought process at any given moment or any given week for any fucking thing at all. Just like, I've been in a daydream state all week long. I just keep thinking about that one summer at da 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 da. Like whatever thing is that's happening internally, write about that. And then also write about what's happening externally. And then just try to see if you can marry those things together because they're gonna have some overlap. And that's how I would recommend starting. If you have no idea what to journal, just start there. Additionally, like I said before, I have a shadow work video for beginners with prompts. If you want to get into some shadow work stuff, I will link that again above and also below. So if you want to try to do that as a beginner as well, you can do that. Additionally, you can also journal out your moon rituals, your tarot readings. If you do these things, you can journal out creative work. You could just write poetry, you can draw, you can doodle, like it's your personal journal. You can put whatever the fuck you want in it. Go wild. But just if you need a starting point, that's what I recommend. So let me know what you wish I would have covered or what you'd like to see or where you're at in your journaling process so I can try to figure out how to make the content that's actually going to be helpful. And if you found this fucking helpful at all, then please, I would really, 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 really appreciate if you interacted with it in some way. Likes, comments, subscribes. And also there's a absolute shit ton of links below with my private Facebook group where we do bi-weekly Zoom calls. It's free. We just hang out. It's cool. I've got tarot readings, a website, I've got a podcast, I've got merch, I've got just a shit ton of information down below. So social media links, etc. Go ahead and check that out. And I will see you guys in the next video. Thank you so much for watching all the way to the end. You are the real MVP. MVP? Most valuable player. Yes. You're the real MVP.